just is extended. So, oh, sorry.
It's Sophia. Oh. Can I borrow you for a second? You can't see. Sorry. You can't come up here. You can't see in the light. We are going to get started in just a minute or two, but just a reminder, if you are a professional music therapist and you are interested in continuing music therapy education credits, you do need to sign in at the desk, and if you haven't done so, please do so now. Oh, and I'm being told that there's a sign-in sheet for students. Music therapy club, sign in, please, because I think you're in for credits for conference discounts. And then I think some of your professors have sign-in sheets if you have a course at this time, so please make sure you sign in at the desk. All right, we are going to get started. Happy Friday. Okay, we can do better than that. Happy Friday. There we go. Much better. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Joy Allen. I chair the music therapy department here at Berklee College of Music, and I am thrilled to see you here and joining us today for something that I think all of us need. Or I'm going to project and say I definitely need. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm really excited about the day that we have planned. I'm squinting a little bit because the light's in my eyes. I think I'm at that right short level where it's in my eyes. Before I do introductions and what have you, a couple of quick logistics. I think you've heard me say about 3 or 4 times now. If you are here for CMTE credits, you do absolutely need to sign in at the front desk. If you are a student who is here for course attendance, you do need to sign in at the desk. And if you are a student who is with the music therapy club who looking for conference credits, please make sure that you sign in. Other logistics are bathroom facilities are out to your left, my right, out here. There's also a water fountain out there. In the back, there's coffee, water, tea, fruit, and some pastries, so please help yourself to that. We will be taking a lunch break. Lunch is on your own. If you're not familiar with the area, the Prudential Center is probably the easiest and closest place to go with lots of options. And we do have an amazing cafeteria on 160 Mass Ave that is 2 stories and also converts into performance space if you want to check that out. We do have a couple of wonderful research assistants with us today to help you throughout the day if you have any questions. I'm just going to break things. There we go. If you have any questions or you need anything, so I'm going to ask them to stand. Alex Ford over here, and then Sophia Parvalis. Pretty close? Okay. And we have one in the afternoon that I will introduce after lunch, and that's Mizan Willis, and so she'll be here this afternoon. I would also like everyone to take a moment to acknowledge Ella, who is our new department coordinator. So many of you know Brittany Costa had been joining us for years, and Brittany decided to do her master's equivalency in Augsburg in music therapy, and she moved to Colorado. So we're thinking of Brittany, and she might be joining us live stream, but Ella is here and has done an amazing job picking up and jumping right in and getting. And we've had a week full of activities related to that, starting on Monday with a student showcase, where over 70 students and individuals submitted original works or interpretations of works related to struggles with mental health, from anxiety to depression to anger to mass incarceration to suicide ideation to developing resilience and hope and strength. And we were very fortunate to have Mary Lambert here to join us for that, who was phenomenal. And if you haven't listened to her work, she has a new album coming out, but she's a huge advocate and talks openly about her own struggles with bipolar and substance use and abuse and developing resilience as well. We are also fortunate throughout this week to have several lunch and learns related to topics of diversity, working within diversity within mental health, and developing awareness of students with mental health issues as well. We had barnyard babies here yesterday, which I missed completely, and Ella missed completely. I wanted to steal a pig personally, but we missed that. Aren't pigs good mental health, the little piggies, right? Baby bunnies, yeah, they looked, I missed it. Anyway, and today we're fortunate to this CMTE. So I just want to take a moment just to, I guess I'm in my own reflection period, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me. When I had the honor of joining Berkeley back in fall of 2016, one of the first things that I did was set us up to be an approved provider for continuing music therapy education credits through the Certification Board of Music Therapy. Since that time, we have had the opportunity to offer 49 free CMTE credits to music therapists in the region. Not only have we offered thus far 49 free CMTE credits, they've been on diverse topics from improvisational approaches in music therapy with autism, biopsychosocial medical perspectives, trauma-informed care, LGBTQIA+ identities within music therapy, substance use disorders, and hip-hop culture and implications for music therapy. We have also offered a total of 33 credits of advanced music therapy course offerings, including Rhythm, Breath, Lullaby, NICU music therapy with Joanne Lowy, and most recently, Mazda training with Wendy McGee. And lastly, just because we know we need ethics credits, right? We offered a three-credit free CMTE for our supervisors on ethics and supervision, and we will be offering that again. So the point I'm saying about that is that I hope that you continue to use this as an opportunity to not only continue your learning and exploring, but also realize that we have a mission to give back to our region and to the people who give to us. And we are thrilled that we are in a position that we're able to do that. Those of you this afternoon will receive a course evaluation survey, and there's a part under there that says considerations for future topics. Please, I do read those, so please put options out there. I will tell you that our next CMTE will be on February 21st or 22nd, whatever one's the Friday, and we are looking at palliative care, and I'll have more information for that shortly. Okay, with that said, today, this CMTE is really designed to provide music therapists with essential information about professional burnout and self-care. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand if you've ever been burnt out. You can laugh, yes. I think we've all been there, whether we're a student, a new professional, or an experienced professional. But it's also, the CMTE is about increasing our understanding of the risk factors, the warning signs, and the consequences of burnout, along with the conditions such as compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, and vicarious traumatization. And I'm not going to get into the definitions of those because you'll hear them later. But all of that can lead to more burnout. And through a combination of lectures, panel discussions, and self-care experientials, we will explore burnout within the music therapy profession, which is a real concern. And we are starting to see that this might be why we're having a decline in new professionals from 1 to 5 who are dropping out of the field, 1 to 5 years of experience. But the whole focus at the end is how do we take this knowledge and take this information and go forth with strength and resilience, and we're hoping that you will be part of that dialogue. So thank you for being here. Real quickly, if we could please have our music therapy faculty who are here stand and be acknowledged. I know I see Peggy in the back. I know I have Suzanne Hanser here. I have Adrian Flight. And I literally can't see, but I know Brian Jantz is here with Spirit, Kathleen Howland, Julie Zigo, Karen Wax, Brenda Ross. Don't get excited, they're all not here, but we do. That reminds me is we are live streaming this event, and so you are welcome to post and share with your friends the live stream link and have them join us through live stream. So thank you to our music therapy faculty, and thank you to our staff, including our research assistants, Sophia and Alex Mizan, and of course, Ella. Yeah, give her another shout out. Trust me, the behind-the-scenes logistics are real, and she handles it all. And she's new and still handles it all, so thank you. All right, are we ready to introduce our guest? Ami Kitamura is the founder of the Self-Care Institute. She provides therapeutic support for professionals around the world who are experiencing burnout. She is the author of Resilience Over Burnout, a self-care guide for music therapists. I'm going to repeat that so you can write it down. Resilience Over Burnout, a self-care guide for music therapists, and a creator and facilitator of Resilience Over Burnout, a 31 CMTE credit online program that guides professionals out of burnout and stress cycles through research-based self-care practices. Ami has presented on self-care and professional burnout at international events and conferences, and she's been a board-certified music therapist since 2006 and runs a private practice in Los Angeles, specializing in mental health, trauma, and addictions treatment. She also teaches as a lecturer at UCLA and is an adjunct graduate faculty member at St. Mary of the Woods College. She is currently pursuing a PhD in mind-body medicine from Saybrook University. So please put your hands together and welcome Ami.
Thank you, Joy, and thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful to be just standing here at this moment right now with all of you. So, for today, just to give you a quick overview, this day will be broken up into two parts. So, in the morning, I'm going to be talking about burnout in the music therapy profession. I'm going to just give about a 1-hour lecture here. We'll have a panel where we're going to be talking about burnout, and then I'll do a self-care experiential with you. We'll break for lunch, and then in the afternoon, we'll be talking about self-care, the similar structure. First a lecture, then a panel, then an experiential. And so when it comes to burnout and self-care, I have so much information to share with you. And so before I start giving you all of this information, it could help to get grounded first. So I want to start with a very short meditation. So if you could just put down whatever you have in your hands, get comfortable. Now just make sure both feet are touching the floor in some way. If you're short like me, you need to scooch up in your seat. You can roll your shoulders back and sit with a straight but relaxed posture. Take a deep breath in and gently exhale. You can close your eyes if they aren't closed already, or you can just gently gaze down. All right, so sitting comfortably here, feel both feet on the ground. And focus on that feeling of your feet touching the floor. And now in your mind, just visualize or imagine a tree that's standing tall, a tree that's nice and steady, a tree that's in a peaceful space in nature. Now observe this tree. Notice its leaves, notice its branches. Notice the texture of the trunk of this tree. And then notice how this tree is connected to the earth. You can imagine the roots of this tree. Just imagining the root system that exists below the ground and that spreads through the earth. And then you can imagine yourself in this place in nature with your feet directly on the earth. And imagine a physical connection to the earth through your feet. And through this connection, you can discharge anything from your body or mind that you want to let go of right now, sending it into the earth, and knowing that the ground beneath you is there to support you in any way that you need right now. And then imagine your own energetic roots grounding into the earth, just like the roots of a tree, keeping you steady, bringing you nourishment, and allow your body to receive what it needs. Feel your body connected to the earth. And then now just imagine soft rays of sunlight shining on the top of your head, the same way that light hits the top of a tree. And allow the gentle warmth of this light to move down and through your body, providing you with energy and comfort. And so let the energy of the sunlight from above and the energy from the earth below meet and stabilize in your core. Take a deep breath in and slowly exhale. Keeping your eyes closed, you can gently let go of the imagery, coming back into your body, into the present moment. Again, feeling your feet on the floor, knowing that your feet are connected to this building. This building is connected to the earth, and that we're all connected to each other. Take another deep breath in through your nose. Gently exhale. Take one more moment just to sit with yourself here, feeling steady, strong and centered. And once more, deep breath in. As you exhale, you can gently open your eyes. All right, so that was a short grounding meditation. I find grounding is good to do, especially before talking about burnout. And so I know, burnout is not the happiest topic to be talking about on a Friday morning, but it is a necessary one. So before we talk about burnout, I just want to cover what you're going to leave with today. When we do talk about burnout and self-care, the main gifts I want to give you today are, number one, an understanding of what burnout is. The word burnout can be a very heavy word that comes with a lot of assumptions, but when we can understand what the core of burnout actually means, we can better function as professionals. Then, I also want to give you practical self-care tools to incorporate into your life, into your professional and your personal life. I want to give you a self-care language that you can use with your professional identity. And then I also want to give you 10 self-care anchors. So, to start with, can you please get out a clean sheet of paper? And you can just copy down this list right here. So again, lots of information today. What I want to make sure you leave with are things that are important to you. Not every single thing I say is going to be important or relevant to you, but there will be at least 10 things that are, and I want to make sure that you leave with just a solid foundation and some solid takeaways here. So you can copy down this chart. We'll be going through each one of these 10 anchors throughout the day. We'll do 5 in the morning and then 5 in the afternoon. And let's start with our first self-care anchor here. Your first self-care anchor is, thank you for being here. So I'm here to thank you for being here in person, or if you're listening to the live stream. But I also want you to take a moment here to thank yourself for being here, thanking yourself for showing up, knowing that learning about self-care is self-care. Learning about burnout is an important self-care practice. So this little phrase here, thank you for being here, this can be somewhat of a mantra. And so when we talk about burnout and self-care, these topics can leave a lot of space for self-judgment, for self-criticism, for thinking like, oh no, I'm not doing enough self-care, or oh, this burnout stuff's really relating to me, or all these voices that can come up. If any of that comes up during the day, or if you start feeling overwhelmed by the information, bring yourself back here. Thank you for being here, and know that you just showing up here is doing something about burnout, and just you being here today is you honoring your self-care. So let's just practice this together. Place one hand over your chest. Deep breath in. Exhale. And just silently say to yourself, thank you for being here. All right, so you can relax your hands. And again, bring this back in today whenever you need it, and of course, after you leave here today. This is something you can take with you too. All right, so let's talk about burnout in the music therapy profession. So again, burnout, it's a word that can seem very heavy. It can come with a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of room for self-judgment when it comes to burnout. And when we think of the word burnout, we often think of things like this, something that's broken, like a decline in functioning somehow, or feeling stressed, having a headache, being overwhelmed. And there's a lot more images that can come with burnout other than this, but it does have this sort of negative, heavy feeling with the word burnout. But what I'd like to sort of invite you to do today is, what if we let go of some of these assumptions, and today, what if we looked at burnout, instead of these images, replacing it with this. And what we're going to do today is we're going to treat burnout as a messenger. So again, looking at burnout as a messenger and looking at what burnout has to tell us. Sometimes it can be hard to listen to burnout because it means sitting with our own discomforts, sometimes acknowledging some of our own insecurities. But for a lot of the people I work with who are experiencing burnout, burnout can be a turning point for change. It can be a signal that something needs to change. And for a lot of us, we sometimes learn the hard way. And sometimes we need to burn out first to get us where we need to be. And so this is the general mindset I'd like us to treat burnout with today, is looking at it as a messenger and also treating it with some amount of respect too, where it's not, what if burnout wasn't evil, or what if burnout's not the villain in the story here, but what if it is a messenger for us? So your second self-care anchor for today, so you can write this down on your list, is burnout is a messenger that's trying to communicate that something needs to change. So take a moment just to write this down here. So the big question could be, when you're experiencing burnout, what needs to change? And so we'll be exploring this question throughout the day. But first, let's take a look at what burnout actually is. So I want to give you a very short history of burnout. And so the term burnout, as it refers to professionals burning out in their careers, this came about in the 1970s. So in the 1970s, a man named Herbert Freudenberger was a practitioner treating drug abuse in New York City. And so at the time, the word burnout was used to describe drug users who are struggling with addiction. Now, this man, Herbert Freudenberger, was the first person to kind of notice that his colleagues who were treating these people struggling with addictions were also struggling with a decline in their ability to perform professionally. They were experiencing fatigue and overwhelm and emotional exhaustion. And so he was the first person to use the word burnout to describe professionals rather than the drug users at the time. So with this said, though, I do want to be careful that we don't use the word burnout as a label. So we're not calling someone a burnout, or you're not calling yourself a burnout. Burnout is an experience that's had. It's not what somebody is. So Herbert Freudenberger then defined burnout as the physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by the job demands of human service workers who help people with psychological, social, and physical needs. And also just a note here with these slides, I will give you access to these slides. I'm happy to email them to you, so you don't have to be writing down every single word that's up here, but I will give you a link where you can put your name and email in, and the slides will be emailed to you, just so you can relax a little bit and focus more on taking it in rather than having to write every single thing down. So that was in the 1970s. This word burnout came about, but that was powerful because it gave us a language to start using, and it also started a trend of professionals taking a look at themselves. Now in the 1980s, burnout became measurable. Now when something becomes measurable, it can then become researched. So in the 1980s, this is where burnout research really started to be born. And so the Mazda burnout inventory, this was formulated in the 1980s, and it measures burnout on 3 different subscales. So our subscales are emotional exhaustion, and this subscale measures the depletion of emotional resources. So this measures reduced energy, fatigue, tiredness, exhaustion, or just feeling emotionally overextended. Depersonalization means having like a negative or cynical or detached attitude towards your clients. And then personal accomplishment. So this measures a reduction of personal accomplishment. And so this looks at, someone maybe having a negative evaluation of their own work, being dissatisfied with their own accomplishments, and just a general decline in feeling competent or successful. And so this is still used today to measure burnout, again, looking at these 3 different subscales. So let's look at what this looks like for music therapists. And so research on burnout levels using the Mazda Burnout Inventory shows that professional music therapists fall in an average range of burnout on the Mazda Burnout Inventory. And also an average level of feeling emotionally drained and high levels of feeling connected with clients. And so I see this very prevalently I work with a lot of music therapists who come to me for support with self-care, and I see this as being so common where people actually love their work. They love their client work, where they feel connected in the music, they feel connected to their clients, but for some other reasons, they are feeling also very tired, emotionally drained, and fatigued, and that in itself can be a very confusing experience. To love your work, but to be drained by it at the same time, it can be very hard to make sense of that, and that's what a lot of music therapists are experiencing now in their own ways. So again, in general, an average range of burnout on the Mazda Burnout Inventory. And in Victoria Vega's study that came out in 2010, she surveyed, it was 174 music therapy professionals from all 7 regions of a.m.Add. And in her survey, she found that 10% reported extreme burnout. And that's something really important to keep in mind, because 10%, it's a significant number to be feeling extremely burnt out. And sort of like what Joy was mentioning earlier, we do as professionals need to watch out for things like career drift of people leaving the profession. And, we're not that big of a profession to start with, and we need professionals. There's so much work out there available for us, and the world does need us right now. So being aware of your own risks for burnout is really important, because burnout is preventable. And let me see if there's anything else I want to say about this. So another really good study that came out in 2013 was Amy Clements Cortez's study on looking at the variables that influence burnout in music therapists. So we can sort of look at these as risk factors for burnout, but also these can be warning signs, and these can be what is causing burnout for music therapists. And so we have 4 different categories here. I'm going to go over these one at a time. The most important one to be aware of right now are the work factors, because this was the most dominant variable that contributes to burnout for music therapists in the literature. So the work factors are insufficient pay, work overload, the severity of clients' problems, client prognosis, and empathy. So again, these work factors, these are things that happen at work. These are things that may be controlled by whoever you're working for. And I want to point out 2 specific things when it comes to work factors. So we have severity of clients' problems. This is a really important one to be aware of when we're working with very vulnerable populations. When you're working with very vulnerable populations, this also makes you very vulnerable to burnout. It doesn't mean to not work with these populations because they do need us, but it does mean you need to kind of up-level your self-care when you're working with clients who are experiencing severe difficulties. And then it is interesting, the word empathy is under work factors, and the fact that empathy is here, it does mean that almost everybody is at risk for burnout, because most clinicians hopefully are using empathy as part of their practice. And empathy has been found to cause fatigue. There's something called empathetic distress, where being empathetic for long periods of time can be very tiring. And I'm not at all saying to not be empathetic. Definitely use this as a therapeutic tool. And in the afternoon, I'll talk about how we can kind of counterbalance this with compassion. There are things we can do to protect ourselves from the distress that can come from empathy. But this is something to keep in mind that, I will say everyone is at risk for burnout because empathy is a risk factor here. And then let's look at individual factors. So unrealistic expectations, this is something I definitely had as a new music therapy professional. I came in very idealistic, feeling like, I was in my dream job, and I was. And, just wanting to be that ray of sunshine for everybody every day, and a lot of times I was, but to hold that up every day was a lot. Introversion and extroversion. It sometimes can be really tiring for maybe an introvert to be running drum circles every day. That can be a risk for burnout. But personality does also mean that burnout is an individualized experience here, and we need to pay attention to our own personal risks that come with this. Then moving on to social factors. So music therapists, or music therapy, we are a professional minority. Again, there's not a lot of us out there, compared to like nurses or teachers. There's not very many of us globally, and especially in the United States. We definitely do need more music therapists, in my opinion. But as a professional minority, we are at risk because, for one thing, being a professional minority means we have to constantly advocate for ourselves. We have to constantly explain what music therapy is, because not everybody knows what that is. Advocacy can be very tiring. Explaining what you do constantly, that can get draining at times too. That can get frustrating. And a lot of music therapists out there might be experiencing professional isolation too, or maybe you're the only music therapist. And this experience of loneliness can contribute to burnout, because loneliness itself has shown to be a stress response. And our research is starting to show that loneliness is almost, if not more, harmful than smoking, because loneliness can increase cortisol, this can create inflammation, but again, loneliness is experienced as a stress response in the body. So this loneliness that can be felt, this is something that needs to be addressed and taken care of, but loneliness can be taken care of, and we'll talk about that this afternoon with self-care. Now, under social factors, I also want to talk about the intimacy of a musical space. Now, this is another thing that's unique to music therapists, is that we work with music. It is a huge privilege to work with music. It can also be incredibly enjoyable. It can be very personally fulfilling too. And, when you have those moments, when you are in that sacred music space with someone and you can see their transformation, and then you can feel that entity of music supporting both of you. It can be so beautiful, but at the same time, it opens up a lot of space for your own vulnerability. It opens up space for so many different emotional experiences, and this can sometimes be overwhelming. And you might have had an experience of, having a powerful session with a client or clients, and then leaving, and then sort of just feeling overwhelmed, even if it was a good session, but feeling like, wow, that was a lot. Like, that was a lot to be in there with. And, music, it can bring beauty, but it can also bring pain. Music is powerful, and at the same time, that brings risks. And the power of music also brings risks for us as professionals. And most of us are, educated on the risks for our clients, and we're trained to respond to them if they are having, an experience in music that is painful for them. But we need to be able to treat ourselves in that way too, and give ourselves some grace, some patience, but also some healing when we feel that openness that comes in music, whether it's in a music therapy session or with ourselves too. And then also under social factors, we have role ambiguity. So the role ambiguity means being somewhat confused about what your actual role is at work. So a lot of us are music therapists, but you might be working under a different title and have other roles other than music therapy at work. Sometimes that can be confusing when you did all this work to become like a professional music therapist, and you go in and then you're, for me, when I first started, I was working in a recreation therapy department, and we had to serve birthday cake once a month. I was thinking, what am I doing? Serving this cake, I'm supposed to be doing music therapy. But something like that, where you're doing something outside of your role, and it can seem confusing. And for a lot of music therapists, we do take on other roles too. A lot of us are in academia, or writers, or business owners. And so being a music therapist can comprise of a lot of different professional identities in one. And then we have creative factors. So our participation in music, relationship with music, and something called clinification can very much contribute to burnout. Now, I want to describe what clinification is here. So clinification is a word that comes from art therapy literature. Patricia Allen came up with this term, and clinification is a consequence of a creative arts therapist neglecting his or her own creative process. So for a music therapist, this would look like, a music therapist who stops playing music in their personal life, and music becomes something only they do at work. And it's not just about the behavior, but it's about your relationship to music too, how you're thinking about music, and how your own love for music is changing. And I'm going to go more into depth into clinification and what to do about this in the afternoon. But this word is something that's helpful in your own professional vocabulary when it comes to self-care, because it's likely this will happen, and it's not something that's 100% avoidable. What we want to do is just recognize it when it starts happening, because it is very natural for your relationship with music to change. It's likely that it will. But what we want to make sure that's not happening is that clinification's not happening and then leading to burnout. All right, so just some other risk factors here when it comes to burnout. Incongruence between you and your job. I listed this first because this is very important. There are so many different ways to be a music therapist, and we do want to make sure that you are aligned with the actual work you're doing. This means your values being aligned with the values of maybe the company that you're working for, or your goals and your client's goals are aligned and they're understanding each other. Other risk factors include things like perfectionism. Now, this is an interesting one for music therapists, because as musicians, we develop perfectionism, and not necessarily as a bad thing, but we are first trained to try to be perfect with music, to not make mistakes. Now, this is a very good way to learn. There are times in music where it is appropriate to aim for perfection, but we don't want this to translate into the therapeutic realm 100% of the time. So we need to be careful that we're not taking that same perfectionism in music into music therapy and leaving room for Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes things don't go as planned. And, sometimes we might not play the right note or chord, or, that feeling of after a session thinking, oh, I should have done that or this, or, feeling like you messed up or